McGraw-Hill Professional presents The Hybrid Sales Channel: How to Ignite Growth by Bridging the Gap Between Direct and Indirect Sales. Written by Rich Blakeman. Narrated by Gary Regal. Forward. Why this? Why now? When Rich came to me to share the concepts of this book and asked me to write the foreword, I was about 3 months into my new role as the leader of MHI Global. I had a lot on my mind at the time, bringing together some of the world's greatest brands in our industry in order to serve our clients better and help them sell more profitably. The very first questions we engaged on were just these: why this? Why now? It wasn't a very long conversation. Just as, so I'm told, it wasn't a very long conversation between Rich and the editorial staff at McGraw-Hill when he presented the book concept to them originally, maybe the shortest sales cycle of his career. There has been an absolute shift in our profession, the profession of sales. We've stopped talking about ourselves, how we sell, how we pitch, how we close, and we have moved the entire conversation to being about the customer. If you know nothing else about our MHI Global team, know that our most important belief is this: the most important decision we make as salespeople, managers, and leaders is how to connect with our customers. We have layers and years of research that back up the fact that the companies that do this best and most often win more and more profitably. Hopefully, this isn't new news to you, even if it isn't yet at the top of your strategic sales initiatives. How does this play into my 2 questions? Simple. With the shift in our profession comes one irrefutable truth. We can decide all we'd like about how we want to sell, but in the end, the customer is going to decide how they want to buy. I can't state the case for this book more simply than that. Customers are deciding every day that our traditional sales models do not suit them. They don't care why we separate direct from indirect sales to fit our own cost economics, and they don't like it when we try to tell them how we want them to buy from us. That truth is driving a higher and higher percentage of customer spending through partners and less through our historically esteemed and deeply qualified direct sales channels. We have to adapt to the market and do it quickly, each in our own way based on the markets and customers we serve. And we have to do it now. Why now? 2 simple reasons. 1, if you don't, someone else already is. And 2, growth in every one of our companies is no longer an option. It's required. Not creating growth makes for a very short shelf life as a sales leader. The notion of a hybrid sales channel is not new. Companies have had some version of hybrid territories or market coverage in place for years. Territory sales professionals have forged relationships with their distributors, resellers, agents, or other business partners and worked in some form of teaming fashion or another. What I've seen, however, is a high degree of variation in design, execution, and results. This is another set of characteristics that leads to a short shelf life. Why this and why now? We know that we can no longer get by on talent alone. A scalable, consistent selling methodology is everything. Market conditions are causing us to morph to a hybrid approach, yet a formal model didn't exist until the hybrid sales channel. We know that customers are looking for perspective, not a pitch. In order to provide perspective, we have to make sure that we have the right people aligned with the right customers in the buying process. These sales professionals bring the necessary perspective to influence how this group of people will make this decision this time. To do this right in today's conditions will almost always require one form of a hybrid sales channel or another. We know that the best are always looking for ways to improve. We know this experientially from the clients we work with at MHI Global. But more importantly, our research drives this home as fact. World-class sales teams know what their top performers do to create their results, and they know how to share and replicate top performance behaviors across their organization. In the world of blending direct and indirect sales teams to ignite growth, we'll shorten that cycle for you. Finally, we know that those who prepare win more and win more consistently. The more time a customer spends with you, the more value they expect you to deliver. And you can only deliver value in a repeatable way by preparing and then executing. The gap between world-class and all other sales professionals in this area is distressing. Here's a simple highlight from our 2015 research, the 2015 MHI Sales Best Practices Study. 82% of world-class sales performers say that they clearly understand their customers' issues before they propose a solution, while only 34% of all others can make the same statement. Scary for our profession. This book is nothing if not about preparation and execution. We're at a tipping point. More people are involved in buying decisions than ever before, averaging 5.8 people per buying decision based on our 2015 MHI Sales Best Practices Study for world-class performers. We have more people involved in every sale than ever before, 4.4 per sale. Sales cycles are getting longer, up another 2.8% this last year, and more customers have formalized their buying process and are expecting return on investment, ROI calculations, before making purchasing decisions. More is expected of us, and we must deliver more. That's why this book and why now. I hope you enjoy the read, but more importantly, I hope it helps you engage and connect with your customers and bring them more value. Byron Matthews, President and General Manager, MHI Global. Introduction. A hybrid sales channel. Just exactly what do you mean by that? What do you mean by a hybrid sales channel? This is the most frequent question I've received while writing this book. That's not surprising. In my role as the Managing Director of MHI Global's Channel Sales Center of Excellence, I've talked to companies across industries and geographies around the world, and their interpretations of the term are as wide and varied as the companies themselves. Here's a small sample of what I've heard. We have a hybrid sales channel. Our direct sales team sells to the end customer, and our distributors fulfill every sale. We have no sales that are not channel sales, hybrid channel sales between direct and indirect. We have a different hybrid between direct sales and indirect sales in every market. In mature markets, our direct reps sell only enterprise accounts, while our channel partners sell all other segments. In emerging markets, we sell 100% through distribution and have no direct sales at all. Our entire company is made up of a hybrid of sales channels. We work hard to keep our direct sales channel and our indirect sales channel completely separate and distinct from one another, by market segment, customer, or other variables, to make sure we have no duplication of cost. The only time we end up with what you might call a hybrid is when the customer forces us into it by how they want to buy, not because of how we want to sell. Surely there are a dozen other permutations and combinations of each of these discussions, but the point is clear. There is no clarity on what it means to have a hybrid sales channel. Let's start with the premise made by the last example. The only time we end up with what you might call a hybrid is when the customer forces us into it by how they want to buy, not because of how we want to sell. As ludicrous as it sounds in today's market-driven economy, whether stated or unstated, this is the position of many companies around the world today. It is true whether you observe their organizational structure, strategy, tactics, or actions in the marketplace. Companies have fooled themselves into believing they can influence or dictate how customers will buy, and they follow that supposition through to designing go-to-market approaches that reflect how they want to sell rather than how customers want to buy. Hopefully, you've chosen to read this book for some reason other than to rationalize or reinforce your current thinking and strategy. Perhaps you're enamored by the subtitle of the book and want to understand what is meant by igniting growth through the intersection of direct and indirect sales. I imagine you're especially focused on those words, igniting growth. If you were inspired by Byron's foreword, Why This, Why Now? The combination of igniting growth and the immediacy of the now requires us to be very specific in defining what we mean by a hybrid sales channel. There are some wonderful parallels across disciplines that get to the key point of promise of this book. Let's begin in the world of biology. Why do farmers or winemakers work so hard to crossbreed different strains of their crops to form all sorts of varieties and hybrids of vegetables or grapes? In most cases, they are seeking to make the resulting hybrid taste better than other products to the consumer, create a better yield or production, be more resistant to disease or other factors that prevent perfection in growing the perfect produce, become part of a more competitive or tasty blend with other produce or elements that go into a broader recipe or end product. The factors that drive hybrid production in farming are nearly all market-driven, not product-driven or technology-driven. The growers want to make the best, most differentiated products for consumers to consume. It isn't about having the coolest genetics or the cleverest packaging. The parallels here are almost too obvious when thinking about direct and indirect sales, so let's move on to another parallel, the hybrid car industry. What factors created the hybrid car industry, and how did it come together? The earliest history of hybrid cars begins with Dr. Ferdinand Porsche in the late 1800s, but the most instructive history begins with the mass-produced models of Toyota and Honda delivered beginning in the late 1990s. Again, what factors caused these global leaders to create a hybrid vehicle in the face of the tremendous success of their gasoline-powered existing technology? Increasing consumer cost of gasoline, government pressure on emission control, government subsidies for consumers investing in alternative energies, marketing buzz around the beginnings of an eco-friendly, green consumer base. Other than the common thread between hybrid crops and cars being a market-driven basis, the hybrid car provides a deeper parallel to set the example for a hybrid sales channel. What is at the core of the design of a hybrid automobile? They have two engines, one gas and one electric, each one maximized to its own potential and doing what it does best. One feeds off the other, both working together to achieve the common goal, efficient output and resource use. As we'll develop, this is at the core of what a hybrid sales channel is. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The core takeaway concepts from the hybrid car are simple. The gas engine and the electric motor are separate but codependent. The hybrid car would not function without both of them working in concert. Each engine has specific characteristics that make it best suited for certain tasks, and a computer that ensures that the right engine is engaged to do the right task at the right time, and ensures that the other engine is not doing the same task at the same time. The gasoline engine can in fact charge the energy level of the electric motor. A third system, the braking system, can also charge the batteries that drive the electric motor. All of the systems work together, not separately. The hybrid sales channel was conceived and is built with these concepts in mind. The end goal is to provide a differentiated experience for end customers that causes them to buy more of your products and services than those of your competitors. The core question is, how do you build and manage a coverage model that maximizes every aspect of your direct and indirect resources to drive maximum growth in a marketplace where the customers get to choose how they buy? Our history as a profession is fairly predictable and mostly the opposite, designing elegant cost structures and routes to markets that reflect how we want to sell. I can hear the skeptics already. It won't work. We've tried this before. The channel isn't ready. It won't work. The customer depends on our direct sales team being the thought leaders for them. We can't position the channel to take that spot. We've spent too much time separating our cost structures and building rules of engagement to drive the differences between our direct and indirect routes. It would be madness to undo all of that and build some kind of hybrid. And the list goes on. The skeptics have a problem for every solution. My wife would have me borrow a phrase from Dr. Phil at this point. How's that working for you? There's no question that revenue growth through the channel is on the rise in almost every industry and geography around the world. But that's happening because of how customers want to buy, not because of how we want to sell. The questions we don't want to answer are much harder. How is our total share of customer wallet growing between our direct and our channels? How are we doing with absolute new organic growth in revenue and margin contribution, removing any acquisition growth? How are those working with our current coverage model? We need to learn the lesson of the hybrid car. Two engines with different purposes, both working together, neither duplicating what the other does at any time, one charging the other when it needs it. Let's get to work. Chapter 1. A Story of a Hybrid Sales Channel. How it all began. Act 1. It all started on a cocktail napkin. All good sales stories do, don't they? In this case, it began with a sales manager and one of her direct sales reps sitting at the Altitude Bar in Singapore. The manager calmly looked out from the highest point in the city while the sales rep was fretting over the largest quota he'd ever been given, $7 million. John had made his number every year for the past 5 years, but Jasmine was new to the company and new to this industry segment. John had seen plenty of managers come and go during his days, but he wasn't sure about this one. His peers had told him there was something different about her, so John had his new boss antennae turned on. Jasmine, on the other hand, had meticulously planned this discussion and rehearsed it over and over, with her boss, and subsequently in her mind, until she was certain she was ready. Jasmine pulled out a pen and reached for a cocktail napkin. John calmed in a flash. There was nothing she could do to outsell him on a cocktail napkin. Jasmine drew a circle in the middle of the napkin and wrote $7 million above the circle. John, how do you feel about your quota for this year? Feel? The antennae went on high alert. Surely she didn't want to know how he really felt right now. All of the normal emotions flew through him. I pulled the first half of this year into last year. You must be crazy. I sold everything there was to sell, and my largest client is about to be acquired. I'm looking for a lower quota, not a higher one. You just got here. You don't know me, my customers, my territory, or the industry segment. I'm guessing you all just threw darts over at the Boomerang the other night, and my quota came up 7. But instead of blurting out any of these responses, and despite the loud pinging of his antennae, John was a professional to the max. It's a stretch for sure, Jasmine, but I'm sure we can make it if we put together the right plan early on. At that point, Jasmine knew she had John. She knew she could win him over to the number she had already committed to her vice president. She smiled and nodded. John, I couldn't agree more with you. She picked her pen back up and continued drawing on the napkin. How would you feel if I told you I only want you to personally focus on and close $5 million of the $7 million of your quota, $1 million less than you did last year, and $2 million less than the whole $7? As you can imagine, John's radar went off like a storm warning. Is this what everyone meant by "there's something different about her"? John wanted to react with his normal smart-mouthed "now we're talking, baby," but he chose the high road. He knew there had to be more to this story. "I'm listening." The conversation continued long into the Singapore night, and the cocktail napkin got more complicated the longer they talked, to the point where the average person looking at it would have no idea what they had been discussing. John and Jasmine took turns picking up the pen to elaborate and expand on her basic concept. At the end of the evening, and, truth be told, a few $16 cocktails later that didn't end up on the expense account, John looked Jasmine straight in the eye and extended his hand. "You've got yourself a deal. How do we get started?" The crux of this conversation is happening across dozens of industries today. How do you take your highest cost, highest value resource, the vendor's experienced direct outside sales rep, and focus that person on the business he or she is best suited to cover and close, all while still growing accounts, industries, and territories faster and deeper than any one sales rep can cover alone? It's not just sales leaders in complex, dynamic industries like technology and telecommunications having these discussions. You can look at Halliburton's low-tech business of selling the lubricating mud used in drilling and mining, a business where the customers are so dependent on the red, hard-hatted Halliburton sales reps as the absolute subject matter experts that it risks tying growth solely to the ability to either add more high-cost direct sales professionals or find a way to adopt Jasmine and John's cocktail napkin. So what did all of that scribbling on the napkin mean? What caused the grizzly veteran to turn 180 degrees and buy into Jasmine's plan? What was Jasmine's plan from the start? The answer to those questions, and to John's most important question, how do we get started, is the subject of this book. Let's be clear about what the hybrid sales channel is and what it is not before we hear Jasmine explain some of the concepts in her own words. The hybrid sales channel is an approach to growing top-line sales organically and exponentially faster than staying the course of a current direct sales approach. It is a systematic way of identifying how your end customers are buying today, how they want to buy, both your products and complementary ones, and facilitating what those customers are already choosing to do. The hybrid sales channel is practice, not theory, about how direct sales reps can involve the right business partners in the right parts of their accounts or territories, working with the right contacts and buying influences to drive more sales, better sales, faster sales. And the hybrid sales channel is the management approach and metrics for making it work and making it stick. The hybrid sales channel is not a focused analysis of cost-based sales models aimed at the bottom line. This is a discussion about growing the top line, not competing or complementary models of sales cost of different routes to market. It is not a solution to resolve conflict over compensation between channels. There are as many successes as failures on this road already. These failures are most often driven by the desire to minimize cost, not maximize growth. As the principles of a hybrid sales channel evolve into execution and become successful, the idea is to drive enough incremental top-line revenue growth to fund the model. Each successful growth company always finds the right way to compensate success. The hybrid sales channel is not a primer on how to migrate accounts currently covered by direct sales over to the channel. There is enough history already written on what works here, and much more unwritten about what does not work. And it is not an approach aimed primarily at the channel management profession. Channel managers are tasked with driving the overall efficiency and effectiveness and productivity of the whole of their channel partners. This book is aimed at the efficiency and effectiveness of individual sales and support professionals within a partner firm when they are correctly engaged by the right direct sales rep for the right reasons. Act 2. It actually began in the boardroom. While all good sales stories may start on a cocktail napkin, all true business stories begin in the boardroom. It could have been any boardroom, anywhere. The CEO and CFO sitting by themselves, exhausted from the board meeting that followed the analyst's call. The pressure had been more intense than usual for a non-quarter-ending meeting, and while they felt the need to decompress, there was no time to take a breath. The message had been clear. You have cut costs to make your numbers for far too many quarters in a row while promising to deliver on growth. And the antecedent message. Given your debt-to-equity posture and current market capitalization, there's no way to acquire yourself to growth. You haven't shown the accretive growth and integration benefits yet from the acquisitions you've made over the past 3 years. It's time to produce true, incremental organic growth. A sobering message, to be sure, and one that demands action. Looking only at the rewards of having a C-suite job, the public misses these kinds of footnotes in a financial statement. Risk and reward go hand in hand, and the company was either traveling on the tip of the spear or was going to have to guide the arrow to the bullseye while driving from the feathers. I've met many global heads of sales who aspire to that fabled C-suite job. On days like these, however, they're not envious of never being invited to present to the analysts or directly to the board. Why is that, by the way? If analysts are chirping about organic growth, then why not regularly hear from sales leadership directly during analyst calls? The reasons are simple, sound, and specific. 1. Typically, one or both of 2 signatures of corporate officers are on every financial disclosure and reporting document required by any regulatory body. The CEO and the CFO. The analysts want to hear from those who are directly accountable for setting expectations and then living up to them. 2. That said, these are the officers that analysts and the board have come to know and trust. If sales data are to be presented, outlooks to be given, or perspectives shared on the results of executing any corporate strategy that sales is tasked with carrying out, the CEO or CFO will present it. 3. Finally, let's be honest with ourselves. As a profession, we've not always been the most predictable performers on the planet. If you graphed performance versus forecast quarter over the long run, there is reasonable evidence to support why many CFOs edit sales-generated data before the data go to the board or into financial reports. Regardless of the history, track record, or data, the message coming out of this board meeting was clear. Grow organically. Now. Dominique, CEO for the past 4 years, broke the silence between her CFO, Jorge, by walking to the whiteboard. To start the conversation that had been brewing in her mind since the middle of the board meeting, she scrawled some simple, direct observations. Opportunities for organic growth. 1. All sales channels underperforming. 2. Market coverage. 3. Alignment of resource to opportunity. 4. Focus on growth, not cost. On the whiteboard next to the first, she sketched out the following. Obstacles to organic growth. 1. I've never done it. 2. You've never done it. 3. New product funnel can't help in time. 4. All sales channels underperforming. Jorge sat quietly. taken aback at first by how quickly Dominique had called the two of them out on their lack of history in growing companies organically. Dominique was always first to the bell when it came to personal accountability.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?